Okay, so we are at the last portion of the lighting setup. So in this video, I actually make some changes to the lighting. So the first light, right, I reduced the intensity from 12 to 10 because if I render previously, there are some overexposed happening right here. Okay, whereas 10, right, will give you a better result, but the scene tends to be darker. And also the exposure for area light number 3, I keep it to 11. Okay, and if I render, I get something like this. Now, with the lighting setup, right, there is a lot of like trial and error as part of the process. So if you're still not happy with the result, you can always like tweak the exposure, okay, and maybe the location and rotation of the lighting. So maybe 10 is still a bit too dark for you in general, and you can increase this to 11, and yeah, just compare. Okay, so just make sure there is no overexposed area in a certain spot. Okay, I think 11 is already borderline, because if I put 12, I think these dyes will become super overexposed. Okay, now another thing that people would like to do with their lighting setup is that they like to change the light color. Okay, so if you notice all my light, right, they all have the same boring or plain white color. Okay, so I can also change the color by double clicking. So right now I'm selecting light 1 and I want to change this to maybe yellow, okay, or maybe orange, and I'm going to render, and this is what I get. Okay, so there is a very subtle like orange color is being added to the scene. Okay, this is before, and this is after, and this is before. Okay, so there is a big changes. Okay, however, I feel the color is a little bit saturated. So what I would like to do is that I would like to choose the color that is somewhere closer to white. Okay, so maybe around this region. Okay, not too yellow and not too white, just have a very thin or subtle color of yellow. That's done, and render. Okay, it's there, but it's just very subtle. Okay, let's save this one, and maybe I want to change the color also for light number 3. Let's just have fun and try to choose blue. Okay, so there's going to be a blend in between the yellow and blue color. Okay, so maybe I'll choose slightly more yellow. Okay. Now, another thing that you notice when you are rendering is that you see all these noise, right? When you zoom in, that's because the render quality that you're selecting right now is still considered as low. Okay, so it's good for test render, but when it comes to the final submission, you want to submit a high quality render. Okay, so to do that, you have to go to render setting, which is on the top, and you click this icon, and this will take you to the Arnold Renderer setting. Okay, So make sure this is set to Arnold, because there are also some other rendering engine. Okay, so once you choose Arnold, okay, you go to this step and you increase this value. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is that whenever you increase this value, right, the whole rendering process will take longer. In return, we're gonna get like a better result. Okay, right now this thing will take about 10 seconds to render. Okay, when you try to increase this value, things may increase for the rendering time dramatically. Okay, so do be careful on how much value that you can put here. Okay, things are also different when you have like a slower or faster laptop. Okay, so as a start, maybe I want to put 16. Okay, and I want to stop the video and let this thing render. So in my machine, it takes about 4 minutes and 42 seconds to render this scene. Now if you compare the one with the 16 sample, right, and before, right, you notice like there is a dramatic increase in terms of quality. Okay, especially around this area, we can see some noisiness around the dice, but when you render with 16 quality, you can hardly see like the noise. Okay, so this is after and that is before. Okay, so do be careful again when you try to render this with higher value. Okay, now when you finish, you want to save this file, you can go to File and then Save Image, but do notice that you have to click this button first and make sure that the save mode is changed to Color Manage. Okay, because if you set this to RAW, later when you save the file, the color will be different from what you saw here. Okay, usually tends to be darker, so they'll be incorrect. Okay, so what you should do is that you change this save mode to Color Manage, and then you can save the file correctly. Okay, so I'm gonna save this under my desktop, the project folder, which is Casino Table, and Image, and save it under render casino.jpg and replace it. Okay, so that's how you do lighting setup and rendering inside Maya.